She thought she was buying a piece of land to build a mansion, until a signature on an old deed revealed the name of someone she never expected to see again. The hills of Sonoma, California, were the perfect escape for the rich and powerful. And Vivian Bellamy, 36, a self-made tech entrepreneur and multimillionaire, had her eye on a 5-acre slice of untouched countryside, rolling fields, an old cottage, and breathtaking sunset views. "This is it," she told her agent. "My future estate. No neighbors, no noise, just me and the quiet." The seller, a local real estate office, claimed the land had been dormant for years. A simple transaction. Cash deal. Just needed one final sign-off from an heir listed in the original deed. Vivian signed the offer and waited. 2 days later, she got a call. "There's been a delay," the agent said. "Apparently the land isn't just sitting in probate. It still belongs to someone, an elderly man. No one knew he was alive until we ran the paperwork." Vivian frowned. "Who?" The agent paused. "Name's Raymond Walters. He's the last registered owner." Vivian's breath caught in her chest. Raymond Walters. That name. It hit her like a wave of memory. Flashes of a small kitchen, the smell of baked cornbread, and a soft voice humming old jazz tunes while peeling apples. "That's not possible," she whispered. "He was our cook when I was a child." Vivian couldn't shake it. She canceled meetings, paused renovations, and dug through a dusty box of old family photos tucked away in storage. And there he was, Raymond Walters, standing in their childhood kitchen, smiling gently in a white apron, hands dusted with flour, a young Vivian clinging to his leg, giggling. He was more than a cook. He was comfort. He was consistency, during years when her parents were too busy for bedtime stories or morning pancakes. "Raymond raised me more than anyone else ever did," she whispered aloud to no one. The next day she called the agent. "Where is he?" she asked. They gave her an address on the outskirts of town, a small, weathered cottage tucked behind an overgrown fence, the same house that stood on the land she was trying to buy. Vivian drove there immediately. When she arrived, a man, slightly stooped, hair silver but eyes sharp, was sitting on the porch with a cup of tea. He looked up as she stepped out of her car. At first there was no recognition. Then she said, voice cracking, "Raymond, it's me, Vivian." His eyes widened. He stood slowly, and for a moment they both just stared, time folding into itself like a memory being unwrapped. "Little Viv," he said softly, "you grew up." She laughed through the tears. Barely. They sat on the porch for hours. Raymond explained how the land had belonged to his grandfather, that when he retired from working for the Bellamy family, he returned here to live quietly. The deed had always been in his name. Never transferred, never sold. "I didn't know you'd grown into someone so powerful," he said. Vivian looked out across the land, humbled. "I didn't know I almost took something from the man who gave me everything." That night, Vivian sat in her sleek downtown condo, surrounded by luxury, yet deeply unsettled. She stared at the contract papers still sitting on her marble counter. It was all legal. She could have signed, wired the funds, and claimed the land. But now, it felt wrong. Because that land didn't just belong to Raymond. It was Raymond, the soil he grew vegetables in, the house he maintained by hand, the porch where he read books and waved to children walking home from school. She hadn't almost bought property. She had almost erased someone's home. The next morning, Vivian met with her real estate agent. "Call it off," she said firmly. The agent blinked. "Wait, what? But this was a prime deal." "I'm not taking it. In fact, I'm giving something back." 1 week later, Raymond received a letter in the mail. Inside was a simple document, beautifully printed, professionally bound. Property title transfer, Raymond Walters to remain sole owner. Waiver of purchase. Rescission of development plans. Attached was a second envelope with something else. A $250,000 personal grant under the name the Walters Legacy Fund, created by Vivian herself. He called her, voice shaking. "Why would you do this?" Vivian smiled through the phone. "Because you fed my belly before I even knew how to feed my dreams. Because you gave me love when my own house was too busy for it. And because no mansion I build could ever compare to what you built for me as a child." Raymond was speechless. But the world was about to hear their story. 2 months later, the Bellamy Foundation hosted its first ever Unsung Heroes Gala in San Francisco. Vivian, standing under warm lights in a navy blue dress, walked to the stage with something heavy in her hands. Not a trophy, but a framed photograph of Raymond and her younger self in that old kitchen. "Most people remember who taught them math. I remember who taught me kindness," she began. She looked across the room, directly at Raymond seated near the front, suit crisp, eyes glossy. "This man showed up every morning before the sun. He tied my shoelaces, packed my lunch, listened to my worries. He wasn't paid to love me, but he did anyway. And I almost bought the land where his entire life was planted, without even knowing, until I remembered the sound of his laugh, and how it felt to come home to someone who actually saw me." The audience was silent, moved. Then she turned to Raymond. "Tonight, we're not just honoring you. We're making sure the world knows your name." The Walters Legacy Fund soon became a national initiative, providing grants to retired domestic workers, cooks, nannies, and caregivers who spent lifetimes serving quietly behind the scenes. Vivian donated the entire mansion budget, over $3 million, to launch it. Raymond's face was featured on the foundation's first billboard. "Some build empires, others build the hearts of the people who run them." And that old land in Sonoma? Raymond kept his garden, kept his porch. But now kids came to visit on weekends, planting vegetables, listening to stories, learning recipes from a man whose wisdom had once gone unheard. And every time someone asked how he got so lucky, he just smiled and said, "I made pancakes for a little girl once, and she never forgot."